Norway versus France. Hey guys, and welcome back to another Random Distractions video. This is the continuation on the series for the Arendal 1723S THX tower speakers. In my last video, I compared them to my speakers, which are the Arendal 1961s. As I mentioned before, I'm part of a group in the AVS forum. I'll leave a link in the description below if you're in the DFW area and want to join. But I reached out to them to see if they wouldn't mind me bringing the 1723S speakers up to them and compare them to what they had. So one of them goes by the username of Darth LFE, and besides having a cool username, he also has a really cool theater that's been featured in some YouTube videos by Dream Media, a home theater installer. I'll leave a link in the description below so you can check that out. It's a Star Wars themed theater, and it's really cool looking. And in his theater, the ones that I'm going to compare the Arendals to are his Focal Sopra 2 tower speakers. As a reminder, I wanted to keep some of the parameters similar, so I'm taking my Peachtree Carina to power the speakers. First, what I did was listen to a couple of songs that I'm used to with his speakers before I decided to do the recordings. And for the recordings, I'm recording the same song that I've done in the past. And I'm going to keep the volume at the same -20, which is what I did at my house and what I'll be doing here. And really that's more to show, I guess, the sensitivity differences between the speakers, but that's how I'll be doing the tests. Before I get to that though, I did want to stress again that I'm not a professional, and unfortunately this showed. I was doing running the test, and I'm like, this sounds really off and something sounds weird. And so I double checked my connections, and sure enough, on the amplifier on one of the channels, I had incorrectly switched the speaker cables or plugged them in incorrectly. And so once I switched that, they did start sounding better. Unfortunately, my laptop also kind of glitched on me a little bit, and I didn't realize it until I got home, but some of my measurements were not there and some of the recordings were not there. Luckily, the final results were recorded, so I'll still be able to share something. In addition to that, we did find something interesting in regards to speaker placement, so I'll get to that in the measurements part. One final note, while I did record a sealed version of the Arendal speakers, I'm just going to show the ported version since that's how the Focals were set up. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's get to the audio recordings, and first up will be the Focals. And now the 1723S, and again it's in ported mode. Alright, so let's take a look at the REW measurements for that song. Alright, so here are the Focals, and if you notice, this one is called moved, because we did notice a slight null that wasn't present in the Arendals. However, after moving the Focals less than about a foot, the null started to go away. Unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier, my computer glitched and that original measurement was not saved. I'll quickly show the Arendals in sealed mode, and to me they were pretty close. They do alternate in some areas, with the biggest disadvantage of course being in the base. The null that I mentioned was in the 110 to about 150 Hertz range, and because I did lose that original measurement, it's not as noticeable here, but it was definitely a lot worse. So with the sealed and now the ported mode, I will say that the speakers were located beside the focals on the outside. And so now in the ported mode, as you can see, the bass response is more or less in line with the focals. And there are still those same areas where they kind of alternate. But it was after this measurement that I started wondering about that null. Actually, both Darth LFE and I were wondering about it because it was just really strange that it was so low. Like I said, since I lost the original measurement, this doesn't look that bad, but in the original measurement, it was maybe like this low, if I remember correctly. Going to this last measurement is when we decided to move the Arendals in kind of where the focals were to see if that was what was causing the issue. And sure enough, when we did that, this area here in the 110 to 150 Hertz kind of started to match up. So it was definitely the placement that was causing an issue, and even with the other parts of the bass, it also kind of came down just a little bit compared to where it was before. So here's the Arendals ported, and this one is in the position next to the focals, and this is in the position where pretty much in front of the focals, so the placement was more similar to where they were at. Those are the measurements, but what did Darth LFE and I think? Darth LFE did say that even though he's invested quite a bit into his home theater, he doesn't really consider himself an audiophile. So for him, when he was listening to them, he actually didn't notice too much of a difference, if any at all. As for me, I would kind of agree with what he said. When we were listening, I did write down a couple of different notes, and the only thing I wrote that is that, well, maybe the focals are a little bit smoother, the Arendals maybe a little bit bright, and then when we did go with the ported mode, of course the bass was very similar after that. However, I will say that I was really trying to listen to it and see if I could find something, but if I hadn't done that, I think I would have been in the same boat where I would have been like, I can't really tell the difference. The one thing that did impress Darth LFE though was the price. So the focals can be up to probably 3 times more than what the Arendal 1723S are, even with the recent price increase. So he thought that was a really good value. I will say that this comparison isn't to show which one might be better, because I think that if a pro were to actually run those tests, they might be able to provide more insight into the sound differences. And I will also say that the craftsmanship of the focals was really good, and so I was really impressed by that, and there's probably more differences in regards to that inside and out as well. I also know that in audio, the law of diminishing returns comes pretty quickly, so I'm sure that that's probably in play as well here too. The one thing for sure though, as we saw in the measurements, is that placement does play a part. So if you have the ability to measure and test out your system to see if you can make any changes, I think that is definitely very helpful. For the next comparison video, we're going to be going up against some Klipsch, but not just one model. Well, that's all that I have for this video. I would definitely appreciate a like, of course, on this one, and make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you'll be notified when that next comparison drops. Until then, I hope you have a good one.